The Big Bang Theory was amazing! But if you paid attention, you would have noticed that it wasn't always consistent. For example, Sheldon didn't have a favorite spot everywhere. Amy's personality changed quite drastically. And there are so many questions about Penny's family.
I forgot.
No spot for Sheldon. You don't have to be a fan to know how much Dr. Cooper loved his spots. He spoke about them in like half of the show's episodes. Sheldon had a spot on the couch in his and Leonard's apartment, which he called the single point of consistency. He also had one at Penny's place and in the Arctic. Moreover, he even chose a specific urinal to use at work and had a spot in a jail cell.
I can only do so much.
But there was one place where Sheldon didn't seem to follow his logic of choosing a specific seat. Did you notice where? Unlike any other time, he seemed to be pretty comfortable changing seats at the Caltech cafeteria, where the guys often hung out. Certainly didn't match his personality. Why was it okay for him to sit comfortably anywhere there instead of choosing one particular chair at one particular table?
There really is no answer.
This remains a mystery, just like the next inconsistency about Sheldon's friend. To snore or not to snore? Do you remember the episode in Season 8 where Leonard needed surgery to fix his deviated septum and stop his snoring? It was funny to see how worried Sheldon was about him because of all the risks involved.
If you have the surgery in Nicaragua during monsoon season, I can practically guarantee your death.
So funny that we didn't even notice that the snoring thing was quite weird. Before that episode, it was repeatedly mentioned that Leonard wasn't a snorer. Penny said it in Season 3, and in Season 6, Sheldon implied it too. He mentioned back then that he valued Leonard's friendship because the guy was a good sleeper and bought him the grapes he liked. You're a real catch compared to some snoring guy with a fridge full of lousy grapes, Sheldon declared. It remains unclear why Leonard suddenly becomes a loud nuisance to everyone trying to sleep. Did it just randomly change with no explanation, or did the writers forget that he didn't used to snore? The latter is more probable because even the Big Bang characters were quite forgetful, especially about the mystery of the broken elevator. A memorable episode in Season 3 showed exactly how it got out of order. It was all the fault of Leonard's scientific experiment that didn't go as planned. But no hints about that can be found in earlier episodes. Moreover, some of the details contradict the story. For example, in Season 1, it's mentioned that the elevator was broken 2 years prior. But that timeline can't be correct. It had to be 4 years. In some of the later episodes, Howard actually tries to research what happened to it. Yet, he was there along with Leonard, Sheldon, and Rauch when the accident happened. Pretty much every elevator-related instance from before Season 3 doesn't match with the story. Does that mean everyone in the gang had amnesia about what actually happened? Well, maybe they did because they also seem to overlook one more important detail. Does Rauch speak Hindi? Early on in the show, everyone thought that he did. On multiple occasions, he was able to translate, talk, or understand the language. For example, Rauch once sang an old Hindi lullaby in his head. Later on, he watched a cricket game and translated the Hindi announcements. Plus, we know that Rauch was born and raised in New Delhi, where most people speak the language. And he actually mentioned a few times that his parents also speak it. But somehow in Season 10, he forgot that he knew Hindi. Sheldon said that he learned the language when he was 8 and tried to speak it with Rauch. But Koothrappali claimed that he didn't understand a word of it. Was he just messing with his friend?
This I do not know.
Even if he was, this line was never developed or explained, so it made absolutely no sense. Just like our next character's storyline. How did Howard go to MIT? Wolowitz had a lot of jokes made about his education. Except for Penny, he was the only member of the gang without a PhD. But it seems like even the education he had was impossible for him to get. Let me explain. We all remember the close connection Howard had with his mother. Before he married Bernadette, he was still living at home with Mrs. Wolowitz, and he had no intention of moving out. That's how dependent they were on each other. But to get his master's degree at MIT, Howard had to live away from home for 6 whole years. After all, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology is located in Boston, which is miles and miles away from his home in Pasadena. Why did he never discuss the years he spent without his mother? When he had to go to space for a few months, we'll get back to that later, by the way, it was a huge deal for Mrs. Wolowitz. It was hard for her to let her son go for so long. So how did she live without him for 6 years? And more importantly, how did he survive without her? Or did she move to Boston with Howard while he studied? Sounds like a storyline that had to be mentioned at least once in the show. Before we move on to the next inconsistency, check this out. Visit our awesome merch shop. We have branded t-shirts, hoodies, eco bags, and even phone cases. You can choose between dozens of unique and awesome designs. Click the link under the video and find your perfect match. Amy's character change. When she first appeared on the show, she was just like a female version of Sheldon. She was blunt, robotic, and had no interest in romantic relationships. And she certainly didn't follow normal social constructs. But then suddenly, Amy changed. She quickly became quite animated and eager to fit in with her new friends. Getting closer to Penny, she grew more interested in fashion and, more importantly, in romance. Amy became ready for intimacy way earlier than Sheldon, and it wasn't just a change of personality because she'd found new friends. It turns out that she'd always been interested in boys and her appearance.
I'm a princess and this is my tiara!
She even bleached her facial hair when she was younger and always wanted to belong to a social group. This version of Amy is very different to the one that was introduced to us, but it's quite easy to understand why the writers changed her personality. After all, it was better to see Amy as her own character instead of just another Sheldon. And that's what made us fall in love with her. In fact, Sheldon loved her so much that he once forgot about his own personality trait: questionable germaphobia. This quality was especially extreme in the first seasons. For example, in season 1, Sheldon only had to hear Penny talking about some virus before kicking her out of the apartment. And when he accidentally sipped water from Leonard's glass, he almost had a heart attack. Yet he didn't mind taking care of Amy when she was sick. It didn't even look like the guy was afraid of catching her virus. Of course, it's possible that Sheldon loved her strongly enough to still want to help her, but it's certainly not in his nature to stop complaining. It would have been much more realistic if he mentioned his germophobia to Amy at least once during that episode. He had a right to do it too, especially when he found out that she was pretending to be sick to get more of his attention. But what's done is done, and we're moving on to the next plot hole. Bernadette's overly long pregnancy. It's not unusual for sitcom characters to carry a child for too long. For example, Rachel in Friends was pregnant for about a year, and a similar thing happened to Bernie. If you don't believe us, let's count together. She found out that she was pregnant on Valentine's Day. It was quite a notable episode, as Bernadette and Howard found an unconscious rabbit in their hot tub, so it means that she was at least 2 or 3 weeks pregnant on February 14th. Their daughter Hallie was born in the 11th episode of season 10, and it took place in December. Easy math shows that Bernie's pregnancy lasted 11 months. Since this is 2 months longer than normal, it's no wonder that the poor gal was very tired. Can anyone explain why showrunners keep on making such an obvious mistake in sitcoms? And here's one more about Bernadette's husband: Howard's impossible space. The episodes with Wolowitz on the International Space Station were really funny. In fact, they were so amusing that most fans didn't notice that in real life it would have been impossible for him to get there. Astronauts undergo rigorous training before going into space. This includes multiple tests to make sure they won't panic once they are in orbit, and there's no way Howard could have passed that one, especially as he had a whole multitude of well-documented illnesses such as seasickness, arrhythmia, a nut allergy, and was a high risk for heart disease. And all of those are a huge no-no, so there's no way someone would put Howard inside a rocket in real life. But at least the spacecraft itself was quite realistic, as NASA astronaut Michael Massimino said. You could have actually seen him on the show alongside astronaut Wolowitz. So let's assume that Howard was just too smart to replace him with someone more suitable. And let's talk about the final plot hole. Penny's family is weird. No, I'm not talking about her not having a last name. Everyone knows that the writers consciously kept it a secret. But there are quite a few other strange things about Penny's family. For example, her father's name. At first it was Bob, as Penny mentioned in the second season, but 2 seasons later, he suddenly became Wyatt. Quite a blunder, right? But wait, there's more. We know that besides for her parents, Penny also has a brother and a sister. Yet in the episode with her wedding to Leonard, her family came to visit, but her sister didn't. No explanation was given as to why she was missing on Penny's big day. So it looks like the writers simply forgot that she even had a sister who, as she once recalled, gave her a bikini wax using melted Crayola. Did you notice any of these plot holes? Share in the comments below. And as always, stay awesome. Support OSSA by sending a super thanks. Just click on the thanks button under the video and choose an amount to donate. Stay awesome, and remember, we value each one of you.